The crystal flute slipped from my mother's fingers as I said the words, shattering against a mahogany dining table. A perfect metaphor for what I was about to do to this perfect family. For $1 billion, I repeated, savoring each syllable as stunned silence engulfed the room. That's what my company is worth as of yesterday's market close. My father's face, that face that had looked down on me with disappointment for 35 years, turned an alarming shade of white. My golden child brother Michael choked on his expensive bourbon. My sister Catherine's perfectly Botoxed forehead attempted to form a wrinkle. That's impossible, my father finally stammered. You work at a bookstore. I smiled, sliding the Wall Street Journal article across the table. My photograph, poised, confident, powerful, stared back at us beneath the headline. Wintercrest CEO Alexandra Harrington, Silicon Valley's most mysterious billionaire. I own the bookstore, I corrected him, along with 16 other businesses. But Wintercrest Technology is my crown jewel. For years, I was a family embarrassment, the black sheep, the failure who couldn't live up to the illustrious Harrington name. Every family gathering was an exercise in humiliation. My achievements dismissed, my dreams mocked, my very existence treated as an inconvenience. What they didn't know was that every cutting remark, every backhanded compliment, every exclusion from family photos was fuel for a fire they never saw burning. But your name isn't on any of this, Michael protested, scanning the article with increasingly frantic eyes. A.J. Harper, I said, my professional pseudonym. Did none of you ever wonder what the in my name stood for? As comprehension dawned on their faces, I reached into my bag and pulled out a leather portfolio. Inside was 5 years of meticulously gathered evidence that would destroy the sterling Harrington reputation forever. Now, I said, lay my hands flat on the table, let me tell you why I really came to dinner tonight. I had practiced this moment 1,000 times in my mind, rehearsed every word, anticipated every reaction, but nothing prepared me for the raw power surging through my veins as I finally held their complete attention. You think you know everything about this family, but I've uncovered every dirty secret, every hidden shame, every skeleton lovingly preserved in the Harrington closet. I opened the portfolio, revealing its damning contents. Dad's fraud, Michael's cheating scandal, Catherine's blackmail scheme, even Mom's carefully hidden addiction. My mother let out a small, wounded sound. The question isn't whether I can destroy you all, I continued, my voice steady and calm. The question is whether I will. I stood up, smoothing down my simple but impeccably tailored dress. For the first time in my life, I hold all the power in this family. And after decades of being the black sheep, I've come home not to rejoin the flock, but to burn the entire pasture to ground. I smiled at their shell-shocked faces. Unless, of course, you can give me one good reason why I shouldn't. Growing up, I was always the black sheep, the quiet, misunderstood one in a family that prized status, appearances, and perfection. My siblings shined in school, married well, and brought pride to our parents. I, on the other hand, was constantly belittled for my choices, ignored at family gatherings, and blamed for everything that went wrong. What they didn't know was I was hiding something. For years, I quietly endured the emotional wounds, storing every insult, every humiliation, every moment they made me feel small. But behind the scenes, I was building something powerful, a successful life, a hidden fortune, and a plan. The invitation to the annual Harrington family reunion arrived unexpectedly. Mother had sent it more out of obligation than desire. I knew. 5 years had passed since I'd stepped foot in that house. 5 years since Dad had told me I was worthless and would never amount to anything at my grandmother's funeral of all places. 5 years of silence, punctuated only by the occasional clipped phone call from Mother, always asking when I would get my life together. If only they knew. I stood in front of the massive oak door, smoothing down my simple black dress. From inside came the sounds of laughter and clinking glasses, the familiar soundtrack of Harrington gatherings. My siblings would be there with their perfect spouses, my parents holding court as a distinguished patriarch and matriarch, and I would be tolerated. Barely. I clutched my leather portfolio tighter. Inside it contained years of quiet work, careful documentation, and the key to my long-awaited vindication. I rang the doorbell and waited, my heartbeat steady despite everything. Mother opened the door, her smile faltering slightly when she saw me. "Alexandra, you're here." We were beginning to wonder. Her eyes scanned my outfit, undoubtedly finding it lacking. Everyone's already inside. No hug, no real greeting. Just mild disappointment. It was exactly what I expected. I stepped into the grand foyer of my childhood home, instantly transported back to a time of perpetual inadequacy. The walls were still lined with family photos. My brother Michael's graduation from Harvard Law, my sister Catherine's wedding to son of a state senator, my parents receiving a humanitarian award. There were precious few images of me, and those that existed showed an awkward, withdrawn teenager, always positioned at the edge of the frame. "Alex is here," Mother announced as we entered the living room, her tone suggesting she was fulfilling an obligation. The room fell silent for a brief moment. My father, Robert Harrington, raised his whiskey glass slightly in acknowledgement but didn't get up. Michael and his wife Jennifer looked over with tight smiles. Catherine merely glanced up before returning to her conversation with her husband, Thomas. Only my youngest brother, Ethan, approached me with genuine warmth. "Hey, stranger," he said, giving me a quick hug. "Long time no see." Ethan had always been the kindest to me, though even he had drifted away over the years, absorbed into the family's orbit of success and social climbing. "How's what are you doing these days?" Michael called from across the room. "Still at that little bookstore in Portland?" "Something like that," I replied, accepting a glass of wine from the server. Alex has always been content with. Father paused, searching for a diplomatic word. Modest ambitions. The condescension in his voice was unmistakable. The familiar sting pierced my chest, but I let it wash over me. Tonight would be different. Dinner was served in the formal dining room, a space reserved for special occasions and important guests. I was seated at the far end of the table, as far from Father as possible, between a cousin spouse I barely knew and an empty chair. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. As the first course arrived, the conversation flowed around me as if I were invisible. Catherine detailed her recent charity gala that raised just over 6 figures. Michael discussed his latest high-profile case that would set legal precedent. Mother beamed with pride as she mentioned Ethan's recent promotion at his investment firm. Then, inevitably, the spotlight turned to me. "What about you, Alexandra?" Father asked, using my full name as he always did when preparing to be disappointed. "Any developments in your life?" The table fell silent. All eyes turned to me. Some curious, most prepared for the usual underwhelming update from the family disappointment. "Actually," I said, taking a sip of my wine, "I've been quite busy." "Oh." Mother raised an eyebrow. "Have you finally taken that assistant manager position at the bookstore?" Soft chuckles rippled around the table. I smiled tightly. "No, I've been building a company." "A company?" Michael repeated, the skepticism evident in his voice. "What kind of company?" "Tech, primarily. Specialized encryption software." Father frowned. "I wasn't aware you knew anything about technology." "There's quite a lot you don't know about me, Dad." The edge in my voice caused a moment of discomfort around the table. Catherine quickly changed the subject, asking Jennifer about her recent trip to the Hamptons. I returned to my near invisibility, watching, waiting for the right moment. It came during dessert, when Father stood to make his traditional family toast. "To the Harrington legacy," he said, raising his glass. "To excellence, ambition, and success, the cornerstones of this family for generations." Everyone raised their glasses. I remained seated, my glass untouched. Alexandra, Mother hissed, "Stand up." "I'd rather not toast to a lie," I said quietly. The room went still. "Excuse me?" Father's voice had that dangerous edge I remember from childhood, the precursor to his cold fury. I said, "I'd rather not toast to a lie." I stood now, my voice stronger. The Harrington legacy isn't built on excellence or ambition. It's built on deception, manipulation, and cruelty. Alexandra. Mother gasped. "That's quite enough." "No, it isn't enough. It's barely the beginning." I reached for my portfolio. For years, I've sat at this table and listened to all of you talk about success and family pride while treating me like an embarrassment, the black sheep, the failure. "If you're going to cause a scene," Father began. "Wintercrest Technology Solutions." I interrupted. "Ever heard of it?" Michael frowned. "The encryption company that went public last year? What about it?" "I founded it. I'm the COO." Silence fell over the table. Expressions of disbelief and confusion flickered across faces. "That's impossible," Catherine said. "Wintercrest was founded by A.J. Harper, my professional pseudonym." I explained. "I knew none of you would look twice at a tech company founded by just Alexandra." "This is absurd," Father said, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "Wintercrest is valued at just over $4 billion as of market close yesterday. I finished for him, which makes me by far the most financially successful person at this table." I opened my portfolio and slid the company prospectus across the table. Father picked it up, his hands slightly unsteady. "So you've had some success," he finally said, his voice strained. "Why keep it secret? Why not tell your family?" "Because you're not my family. You're just people who share my DNA. Family doesn't do what you did to me." "What exactly did we do that was so terrible?" Michael challenged. "So we pushed you to be better. That's what families do." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Is that what you call it? Telling a 10-year-old she's worthless because she got a B in math? Excluding her from family photos because she didn't fit the image? Mocking her interests, her dreams, her very existence?" "You're being melodramatic," Catherine said, rolling her eyes. "Am I?" I pulled out another document from my portfolio. "Dad, do you remember what happened to Grandma Clara's inheritance?" Father's face went pale. "What about Grandma's inheritance?" Ethan asked, looking confused. "Our grandmother left specific provisions in her will." I explained, my eyes never leaving Father's face. "Equal shares all grandchildren, to be distributed when we turn 25. Except none of you ever received anything, did you?" "There was nothing to receive," Father said stiffly. "Clara died nearly broke." "That's what you told us." I agreed, but that's not what her will said. I slid another document across the table. A copy of my grandmother's will. She left each of us $450,000. Dad intercepted it all, forged our signatures, and invested it in his failing business ventures. "That's a lie." Father slammed his hand on the table. "Is it? Then how do I have copies of the forged documents?" I produced more papers from my portfolio. "How do I have bank statements showing the transfers? How do I have emails between you and your business partner discussing how to hide the theft from your children?" Mother put a hand to her mouth, eyes wide with shock or fear. I couldn't tell which. "Robert," she whispered, "did you really?" Father's face had gone from pale to red. "This is a family matter that doesn't need to be discussed at dinner." "Oh, but there's more," I continued, turning to Catherine. "Should we talk about how you got your position at Meridian Partners? About the affair with the married hiring manager? About the blackmail?" Catherine's husband, Thomas, turned to her sharply. "What is she talking about?" "Nothing. She's making things up." Catherine's voice had risen an octave. I pulled out a folder with printed emails and photos. 5 years an affair, documented in your own words. "I'll tell his wife everything if you don't give me the director position." That's a direct quote from you, Kathy. As Thomas grabbed the folder and began flipping through it with trembling hands, I turned to Michael. And you, big brother, Harvard Law's golden boy, want to tell everyone how you really passed the bar exam on your third try? Or should I share the details about the answers you paid for? Michael's face drained of color. You can't prove that. Actually, I can. The person who sold you the answers kept records. Records they were very willing to share for a price. Why are you doing this? Mother asked, tears in her eyes. To destroy your family? I'm doing this because for 20 years, I endured emotional abuse from all of you. You made me believe I was worthless, that I would never amount to anything. You isolated me, belittled me, and then had the audacity to pretend it was for my own good. I looked around the table at their shocked faces. The funny thing is, it was your cruelty that drove me to succeed. Every time Dad told me I was useless, I worked harder. Every time Catherine mocked my ideas, I refined them. Every time Michael belittled my intelligence, I studied more. You all created the person standing before you now, someone powerful enough to destroy each of you with the truth. What do you want? Father asked, his voice hoarse. Money? Revenge? I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, I replied calmly. As for revenge, I could have leaked all of this to the press months ago. I could have had you arrested for fraud. Dad, I could have ruined all your carefully constructed lives without ever showing my face. Then why didn't you? Ethan asked quietly. He alone seemed more sad than angry or frightened. Because I wanted you to know it was me. I wanted to see your faces when you realized that the person you thought was nothing, the black sheep, the disappointment, the failure, held your fates in her hands. I closed my portfolio and stood up. The information I've shared tonight is just the beginning. I have copies of everything. Every corrupt deal, every lie, every secret you thought was buried. Whether that information becomes public is entirely up to you. You're blackmailing us, Michael said incredulously. I prefer to think of it as establishing boundaries. I smiled coldly. From this moment forward, my relationship with this family will be on my terms, or it won't exist at all. And what are your terms? Father asked, his voice barely above a whisper. First, a public apology from each of you, acknowledging how you've treated me. Second, you will establish a foundation in Grandma Clara's name, funded with the money you stole plus 20 years of interest, dedicated to supporting young people from abusive families. Third, you'll all enter family therapy, where you will honestly address your behavior. And if we refuse? Catherine challenged, though her voice wavered. Then tomorrow morning, the FBI receives evidence of Dad's fraud. The state bar gets proof of Michael's cheating. Catherine's emails go to board Meridian Partners and to every major news outlet. And Mother's carefully cultivated social standing disintegrates when everyone learns what kind of family she's really created. I picked up my purse and looked around the table one last time. You have until noon tomorrow to decide. My lawyer will contact you with details. As I walked toward the door, Mother called after me, her voice breaking. Alexandra, please, we're your family. I turned back, meeting her tear-filled eyes with a steady gaze. For years, I believed the problem was me, that I wasn't good enough, smart enough, perfect enough to be a true Harrington. But now I see the truth. It was never me who failed this family. It was this family who failed me. With those words, I walked out of the dining room, through the grand foyer, and out the front door into the cool night air. For the first time in my life, I left the Harrington estate not with shame weighing on my shoulders, but with my head held high. In my car, I took a deep breath, feeling neither joy nor sorrow, only release. The burden of secrecy, of pain carefully hidden for years, had finally been set down. Whether my family chose redemption or destruction was now up to them. As I drove away from the house that had never truly been my home, I realized that the revenge I had so carefully orchestrated wasn't really about punishing them. It was about reclaiming my power, my voice, my truth. The black sheep had not only survived but thrived, and in doing so had forever changed the dynamics of the flock. My phone began ringing. Ethan's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated, then answered. "I believe you," he said simply, "and I'm sorry. I should have protected you." Tears filled my eyes, not tears of anger or pain, but of something else. Something that felt almost like hope. "It's not too late to start," I replied softly. As I continued driving into the night, away from the past and toward a future entirely of my own making, I understood the most important lesson of all. Sometimes, the greatest revenge isn't making others suffer. It's showing them exactly who you become despite their efforts to break you. The black sheep had finally come home, not to rejoin the flock, but to redefine it entirely. In the weeks that followed that fateful dinner, the Harrington family underwent a transformation no one could have predicted. My ultimatum had shattered the perfect facade they'd maintained for decades, forcing each of them to confront the truth, not just about me, but about themselves. What surprised me most wasn't their compliance with my demands. It was a realization that revenge, once obtained, tasted different than I'd imagined during those lonely years of planning. The sweet satisfaction I'd anticipated was tinged with something else, something that felt strangely like grief for the family we could have been. As I watched my father struggle through his first honest therapy session, his proud shoulders finally bowed under the weight of accountability, I understood something profound. Cruelty is often a hidden confession of weakness. His constant belittling of me had never been about my failures, but about his own deep-seated insecurities. His fear that he wasn't worthy of the Harrington name himself. My sister Catherine, stripped of her carefully constructed persona, revealed in tears how she'd spent her entire life terrified of disappointing our parents. Her perfectionism wasn't superiority. It was desperation for approval, the same approval I had eventually stopped seeking. Even my brother Michael, once exposed, admitted something I never expected. He had envied me. "You were always authentically yourself," he confessed one evening. "I've spent my whole life being who everyone expected me to be. I don't even know who I am anymore." These revelations taught me the first lesson of this journey. The people who hurt us are often drowning in their own pain. This doesn't excuse their actions, but understanding it can free us from the prison of resentment. The foundation we established in my grandmother's name became my unexpected healing. Working alongside families broken by the same patterns that had fractured ours, I witnessed the powerful truth that cycles of emotional abuse can be broken, not through vengeance, but through brave honesty and the willingness to begin again. The second lesson emerged. True power isn't found in domination or retribution, but in the courage to offer others a chance for redemption, even when they haven't earned it. My mother, in a moment of rare vulnerability, asked me how I had succeeded despite everything they had done to undermine me. The answer was simpler than any of us had realized. I had stopped internalizing their narrative about who I was. The moment I rejected their definition of success and embraced my own path, I found strength they couldn't touch. This revealed the third and perhaps most important lesson. No one can define your worth but you. The opinions of others, even those closest to you, are reflections of their own limitations, not accurate measures of your potential. Family wounds cut deepest because they're inflicted by those who should protect us most. But these wounds, once acknowledged and addressed with honesty, can transform into wisdom that serves us for a lifetime. In the end, my revenge wasn't found in destroying my family, but in refusing to let their treatment destroy me. By breaking free from the role of the black sheep, the designated failure, I didn't just change my own story. I offered my family the opportunity to rewrite theirs as well. The ultimate revenge against those who underestimate you isn't proving them wrong. It's living so fully in your authentic power that their opinions become irrelevant to the person you become. And perhaps that's a final lesson. Sometimes the family we need isn't the one we're born into, but the one we create, whether through blood or bond, built on foundations of mutual respect, genuine acceptance, and the radical belief that everyone deserves to be seen for who they truly are.